Story 1. The Lantern Man. My name is Emily. I'm 21, and I grew up in a tiny town called Cedar Hollow, Kentucky. After finishing my freshman year in college, I moved back to my parents' old farmhouse for the summer. It sits at the end of a winding dirt road, surrounded by thick woods that block out every trace of streetlights. The first night back, everything felt quiet, too quiet. I was unpacking when I noticed how dark it got as soon as the sun set. No passing cars, no neighbors, just the wind rustling through the old oak trees. It gave me this eerie feeling, like the woods were watching me. Around 11:45 p.m., I was sitting on the porch with a cup of tea when I saw it, a faint light flickering deep in the tree line at the edge of our property. At first, I thought it was one of my dad's old flashlights, but the light swayed like it was suspended in a jar, glowing orange. "A lantern," I called out, "Dad." But the only response was the wind. Then the light vanished. The next night, I stayed up, pretending to read, hoping I'd be imagining things. At exactly 12:03 a.m., I saw the same light again, closer this time. My stomach dropped. I stepped onto the porch, shining my flashlight into the woods. Nothing, just the shadows of trees swaying in the wind. Then I heard a faint crunching, slow, deliberate steps, not running, not heavy, just walking toward me. I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure it echoed in the forest. The lantern flickered between the trunks of two trees. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. Then, without warning, the light moved straight toward the porch, closer than it should have been, and suddenly, it disappeared again. By the third night, I couldn't sleep. I heard whispers in the woods, low, almost like a song. "Emily." I sat up, heart racing, certain someone had called my name. No one answered when I shouted back. I checked all the windows locked, every door locked. The whispers grew, louder each night, sometimes right outside my bedroom window. At first, it sounded like words, but then it turned into hissing laughter. Long, slow, drawn-out breaths that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. On the fourth night, the lantern appeared in the yard itself, not the woods. I could see it swaying slowly, and for the first time, I caught a glimpse of a figure, tall, thin, draped in a black cloak that shimmered in the lantern light. The face was hidden, but I felt eyes on me. I backed away from the window. The figure didn't move for a long moment, then slowly walked toward the house. Each step made a hollow, dragging sound that seemed louder than it should be. I grabbed my dad's old hunting rifle from the closet, hands shaking. The figure stopped at the edge of the porch. I froze, gripping the rifle tighter. Then it disappeared, only to reappear at the back door, its lantern glowing bright against the wood. I ran out the side door and sprinted toward the barn. Heart in my throat, lungs burning. I glanced back. It was following me, slow, deliberate, never breaking pace. I made it inside the barn and slammed the door. I could hear it circling, scratching at the wood, whispering, laughing. The lantern light flickered under the cracks. The next morning, I found a small scrap of paper nailed to the barn door. "Come out. I've been waiting." No fingerprints, no footprints, just the note, written in shaky letters that looked almost alive. My parents didn't believe me when I told them about the figure. They said I must be stressed from school. But I knew better. That night, the figure returned, and this time it stayed in the yard, rocking back and forth like it was enjoying the fear. I couldn't sleep. I decided to check the basement, thinking maybe it was someone hiding near the house. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I descended. The air smelled damp, metallic. There was nothing, at first. Then I saw footprints in the dust, barefoot, huge, stretched from the basement stairs toward the back wall. And then I heard the lantern, swinging outside the basement window, brushing against the glass. I froze. I realized it was watching me, always watching me. On the 8th night, I woke to silence, too quiet. I stepped onto the porch. The lantern was gone. I thought maybe it had finally left. Then I noticed a shadow moving inside the woods, far off. The road. It wasn't walking, exactly. It was gliding. I felt my stomach drop as I realized it was coming toward the house again. Suddenly, my dog, Max, barked violently from inside. I ran to the door, and the figure was right there, on the porch, pale face under a hood, holding the lantern high. I screamed, grabbed the rifle, and yelled, "Who are you?" It tilted its head. The hood slipped just enough to reveal nothing. No face, no eyes. Just a smooth, pale void where a face should be. My blood ran cold. I fired a warning shot. The figure vanished. Just like that. No sound, no rustling, no lantern, only the echo of the gunshot and the wind in the trees. The next morning, my parents called the sheriff. He searched the woods, found nothing. No footprints, no signs of anyone hiding. I stayed up every night after that, but the lantern never came back, at least, not in the same way. Sometimes, I'd see a flicker deep in the woods, just beyond the trees, like it was waiting, watching. I moved back to college that fall, but Cedar Hollow never left me. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I swear I can hear faint whispers calling my name, and the soft sway of a lantern in the distance. Story 2, The Cornfield Stranger. My name is Ryan. I was 14 when this happened, living on a small farm outside Millersville, Nebraska. Our house was surrounded by endless cornfields. I was walking home from a friend's house late one summer evening, taking the usual dirt path through the corn. It was quiet, too quiet. Normally, the wind would rustle the stalks, birds would be settling in, crickets chirping. But that night, everything felt still. Halfway down the path, I noticed something moving in the shadows between the rows of corn. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just a raccoon. But then I heard footsteps behind me, slow, measured, perfectly in sync with mine. I froze. The footsteps stopped. I turned. Nothing. The corn was tall, taller than me, but the stalks weren't moving. Then I heard a whisper. "Ryan." My blood ran cold. I spun around again. No one there. My heart hammered in my chest. I started walking faster. The whisper came again, a low, almost guttural sound, and this time I could make out the words, "You shouldn't be here." The next sound I heard was a rustling from the stalks to my left. I turned and saw a figure emerging from the corn, tall, impossibly thin, wearing a dark hoodie that blended with the shadows. Its face was hidden, but the stalks seemed to bend toward it, as if the wind itself obeyed its presence. I tried to scream, but my voice caught. The figure moved slowly, deliberately, following my path through the field. I bolted, feet pounding, against the dirt path, heart in my throat. Behind me, I could hear it moving faster now, shuffling through the corn like it was floating, almost silent, except for the occasional snap of a stalk. I turned to glance back, and it was there, just a few feet away, hooded head tilting, as if studying me. My legs burned, but I couldn't stop running. I stumbled near the edge of the field, and fell. My hands scraped against the dirt. When I looked up, I froze. The figure was crouched over me, one pale hand extended. It didn't touch me. It just watched. Its fingers were long, unnaturally thin, curling like branches. Then it whispered, "Come with me." I scrambled to my feet and ran blindly toward the road, leaving the dirt path behind. Finally, I burst out onto the gravel road. My lungs burned. The figure didn't follow. I thought I was safe, but then I saw its shadow stretch across the road, even though it wasn't standing on the asphalt. It glided from the cornfield to the middle of the road, tall, dark, watching me. My stomach dropped. It was waiting. I sprinted the last mile home, never looking back. The next day, I told my parents. They laughed at first, assuming I was exaggerating. But my dad went out to the path and found something strange. Giant, barefoot footprints pressed into the dirt, too wide to be human. Leading from the edge of the field toward the woods, no one had been there. No animals could have made them. The path vanished in the middle of the cornfield, as if the creature had just disappeared. 2 weeks later, I was walking home again, this time with my friend Tyler. The sun had already set, and the corn shadows stretched like fingers across the path. We heard it before we saw it, a low hiss, followed by the sound of something running through the stalks. Then the figure appeared, gliding toward us, hood up, faceless. Tyler screamed. I grabbed his arm. We ran blindly, the creature moving faster than anything should have been able to. The sound of the corn snapping behind us followed every step. We made it to the edge of the field, tripping over roots and rocks. I dared a glance back. The figure had stopped at the boundary of the corn, just staring. Its head tilted, whispering something I couldn't understand. But the feeling of being watched was unbearable. We didn't stop running until we reached my house. Locked every door and window, but I could still feel its eyes in the dark. Years later, I still live in Millersville, but I avoid the cornfields. Sometimes, when I drive past at night, I see a dark figure in the distance, moving between the rows. I don't know what it wants, or why it followed me that summer. All I know is this: whatever lives in those cornfields doesn't forget, and if you're ever walking through corn at night, don't look back, because it will look back at you. Story 3. The Old Well. My name is Sophie. I was 17 when I spent the summer at my aunt's farm in Pine Creek, Oregon, a tiny town surrounded by dense forest. My aunt and uncle had an old property with a barn, a creek, and a well that had been there for over a century. On my first day, my uncle warned me, stay away from the old well after dark. Strange things happened there. I laughed it off. Ghost stories were boring, right? But that night, as I lay in bed, I could hear the wind coming from the direction of the well, whispering, almost calling my name. A few nights later, I was walking near the barn to check on the animals when I saw it. A pale face peering up from the old well, eyes hollow, staring directly at me. I froze. The face didn't move, didn't blink, it just watched. I blinked, and it was gone. My heart raced, and I ran back to the house. The next night, I heard footsteps behind me as I walked toward the well to bring water for the animals. Slow, deliberate, crunching the gravel like someone was pacing. I turned. No one. But then I felt it, a cold breeze brushing against my neck, though the night was still. A whisper followed me. Sophie. I ran. Over the next few nights, strange shadows began appearing around the property. At first I thought it was the moonlight tricking me, but the shadows moved on their own, stretching unnaturally, always pointing toward the well. One night, I saw a shadow detach from the wall of the barn and glide silently across the grass. Stopping at the edge of the well, curious and terrified, I started searching my aunt's attic. There, I found an old leather journal that belonged to a girl named Clara, who lived on the farm over 100 years ago. Clara wrote about the well, how it whispered to her, how it took her friends, how it demanded attention and punished those who ignored it. The last entry was smeared with something dark. It read, "I think it knows my name." One evening, I was alone by the well, filling a bucket. I heard my name whispered softly, carried by the wind. "Sophie, come closer." The bucket slipped from my hands. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The shadows near the well seemed to stretch toward me, curling like fingers around my ankles. Then I saw it, the pale face again, this time closer, hovering just above the well's edge. I stumbled back. My foot caught a rock, and I fell hard. The next thing I knew, cold hands gripped my arm. The face was right in front of me, hollow eyes boring into mine. I screamed, pulled, twisted, and the hands vanished. No one was there. The bucket had rolled into the grass, untouched. But the feeling of being watched stayed with me. The following night, my cousin went missing. He had wandered near the well and never returned. The townspeople searched for days, but he was gone without a trace. I knew, in my gut, what had happened. The well, it took him, and it was waiting for me. The following night, my cousin went missing. He had wandered near the well and never returned. The townspeople searched for days, but he was gone without a trace. I knew, in my gut, what had happened. The well, it took him, and it was waiting for me. I decided I had to face it. Armed with a flashlight and my aunt's old shotgun, I approached the well at midnight. The air was thick and cold. The whispers were louder than ever, swirling around me. Sophie, come closer. I shone my flashlight down the well. The face appeared again, eyes dark voids staring up at me. My hands shook as I lifted the shotgun, and then it laughed. A hollow, echoing laugh that seemed to come from inside my skull. I fired the shotgun into the darkness of the well. The echo was deafening. The laughing stopped. The shadows retreated. I ran back to the house and never went near the well again. My cousin was never found. My aunt refused to talk about it. Even years later, when I pass by that property, I can feel the pull of the well, calling my name softly in the wind. And I know one thing for certain. Whatever lurks in that old well isn't done. It waits, always waits.